Okay.
So tell us about the marketing and sales for this project in
Okay.
Ghana.
So part of our sales strategy is that we have relationships in the broker commission community. So we plan to leverage the relationships to continue to secure long-term contracts of, say, like 5 containers a month of cacao powder of a specific type and consistency of butter, of cocoa butter. And the same for peanuts, and the same for, I would say, cashews as well. That we feel feeds the demand, also allows us to do continuous improvement with the customer of giving them a product that they really want. For example, we found a buyer that was looking for cashews, but they really needed crushed cashews to use to mix with eggs or something in Spain. That's an example of us digging a little deeper with the customer to figure out what they really want, to give them what they really want at a fair price.
All right. Tell us about the models that you're going to be using for these arrangements.
The model in which way?
Your private labeling.
Oh,
and
okay. So
yeah.
private labeling would be when a producer comes to us from, say, Dubai and says, I have this type of bag and I want this product and I want you guys to produce it. We are open to doing that aggressively. In a sense that long as we're giving the market what the market looks for, that's fine. We're also willing to enter exclusive contracts for local markets so that we're not co-competing with someone with their own product. But at the same time, we want to give the market what they want. And if it allows us to get into certain markets without us necessarily introducing our product, that's fair. But we believe in the long-term partnership of the willing and getting the market what it wants, such as a produced product, to allow mid-tier producers to compete with some of the major players at a fair price. So we believe that we could take a product cycle what would take 6 months to a year to be done in between 1 to 2 to 1 to 3 months, and of launching that product, even if we produce locally. For example, I give you an example in the sense that if we produce, say, peanuts, roasted peanuts with a blend of certain spices, we could produce that in Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire, ship it to a given country, and then bag it there with their bags and hand it and deliver it to them to the local market. That's an example of leveraging the supply chain, leveraging relationships to give a private label person exactly what they want. The other is white labeling. We're willing to do just large containers or burlap sacks or bags for particular producers of a certain specification if we know that that's what they want. And that's what we found out in the market, is that people or markets today don't just want roasted or just cashews. They want cashews with some value add to them, or the same with chocolate, with some value add to it, so they don't have to make that particular infrastructure investment of resources, time, and effort.
And of course, there's the Go Africa branding, which will be a significant portion of the business.
If the forces are willing, we believe that in Africa we could introduce our local products for the local consumer at a fair price point. With the partnerships that we currently have in Ghana and in Cote d'Ivoire. The governments want to see that happen, the producers want to see that happen, so why does it happen? So our goal is to kind of just keep to our knitting, work to introduce a product and have it sell, and let the market dictate, does the consumer want this or not, from our lessons learned in the US, and be flexible to change and to give the consumer ultimately what they're going to pay for. And I emphasize that in the sense that I come from a software background. I've done, consumer studies and the like, and I believe that there's a huge disconnect between what a consumer says they want and what a consumer would pay for. And I think that is where we are focused toward, is what the consumer will ultimately pay for at a fair price.
And the one thing you didn't mention was the trading platform. How does that fit within the
trading platform allows us, if you take the supply ebbs and flows of a market, the trading platform allows us to satisfy a give and take of a market. Say someone wants 10 containers of roasted cashews, but we don't produce enough, but there's scattered production everywhere else. We would now buy and fulfill those orders by our ability to buy and give the market some stability and our customers some stability that they know that they can get 10 containers per month of roasted cashews that say WW120s or WW180s without worrying about it in a long-term contract, as opposed to the brokers calling around, scouring the market for prices and getting spot prices, but not a consistent supply.
Okay. So tell us now about innovation broadly and how it relates to Africa and the Middle East.
Oh, okay. I will take it from, I come from software, so I'm very big on most people intellectual property and the how. And when Africa or the Middle East ask, well, how come we don't have a Google? And how come we don't have a Facebook? Or how come we don't have X? How come we don't have an iPhone? The issue becomes, what is stopping that innovation from bubbling up to the surface? What's in the way? And let's see, the Middle East, to develop the clock, the dial, and other things. And I'm sure Kamal can go into other issues of Middle Eastern and African early discoveries of the like of the Rosetta Stone, of other aspects. So how come that we know the talent is there, we can see it, but how come that is not manifesting itself into products for the world? Do this adventure and initiative, we will discover why it's not happening. So I would easily say for any partner or investor looking, Go Africa is firmly committed, say 3 or 4 years out, that at least 20% of our revenue is coming from net new products that are introduced, because that drives growth. And I'm a firm believer of the concept of creative destruction. Yeah, in the sense that you have to be changing or the market will change, okay? Mm-hmm. And thus you're caught left-footed. So if you're not introducing something new that the consumer wants or the market wants, sooner or later you'll be obsolete anyway. So it's not a point of taking risk. And most people know I'm risk averse, I don't gamble. So it's a point of, is it a measured risk and a calculated risk, as opposed to an ego risk or delusions of grandeur risk that you just feel like, oh, we should be great at this and we should be number one at this. And most of the people on the team will ask, I'll say, number one in what? Why? What do you get from being number one? If it's just being number one, then well, why would you want to do that? You could be number two and not have all the attention of one, but being highly profitable. And number two is not all that bad at the end. So I answered that part as being objective in the answer. You had
and then tell us about economic development and trade in Africa.
Well,
your point of view.
The point in economic and trade is that if you look at certain aspects of the banking system and the geopolitical issues and the roads and like, it becomes a cost of the transaction. And Go Africa with the free zones and the like, and being innovative in the market in a positive way, we can reduce the cost of certain transactions. There are things happening with the payment of phones that is doing that, but if we can reduce the relative cost of the transaction and also the relative cost to the consumer, that will drive more development, particularly if we're introducing local products in local currency. Then the value of the trade stays in their currency. So they begin to see a positive development because they're not scrounging the world for dollars and other things of that nature. And they also have innovation happening in the market. And as I said to the team, if someone copies Go Africa in a local market, great, we all win. Long as you're not at a saturation point, why would we care? Because that innovation will drive us to be more innovative, and that's a competitive advantage.
And lastly, just speak about your development processes.
Well, my development processes have to do with software development. And anyone who talks, then he goes with version 1, okay, version 2, version 3. I do believe that if you have a process of improvement, that you're fixing certain issues systemically, like I'll describe the training, that if we find that something's happening mysteriously, we will now introduce a training course or curriculum or module so that it doesn't happen again. That's an example of where you're describing a process with a version that you know that you delivered that version and it wasn't haphazard. The same with equipment. We've spoken with suppliers and we've told them, hey, we're not just interested in you supplying us something, we're interested in you giving us the fixes in the next version of your product or model that we purchase from you, so that we're getting efficiency along the supply chain and the ecosystem of our development. Hence, version 1, version 2, version 1.2, version 1.5, etc. So I believe that it's not perfect, but it will allow us to measure where we are and even look for other improvements that we could have in the future in either, say, going from Ghana to Cote d'Ivoire or Cote d'Ivoire to Nigeria or Nigeria to Kenya, etc.
Okay, that's it.
All right, thanks.